Session Blood.
All right, everyone, welcome to Session Blood episode 13, and we're coming fresh off an awesome weekend of Fab at New Zealand Nationals. One of probably the best Fab events I've played at. It was awesome getting to meet a whole bunch of new people and everything, and bit of a shame you couldn't be there, Carol.
Yeah, thanks for really, building it up. And I mean, I know it was an awesome event. I was following online as much as I could, but yeah, still stings a little bit.
Yeah, but don't worry, I decided to play a deck that I built myself from the ground up. I'll send you a deck list and maybe teach you to play it at some point. So.
Yeah, I just love, like Kieran did all this talk about, just really play the deck you're confident in, really just hone on what you know, and then decides to play Brute. Picks it up a week before the tournament.
But it's easy, just roll Scavskin, no problem. All right, before we get into things, we absolutely love our shout-outs, and I've got a few to go through today because there are a lot of cool people I met and a lot of people who contributed to the preparation for the tournament. So first off, I just wanted to give a shout out to my partner Ricky for travelling down with me and putting up with all the testing hours and all that nonsense, driving us to the tournament on day one and playing herself.
Oh yeah, you guys drove down, eh? That's a mission.
Yeah, that was good fun. And
Good old road trip.
as far as players down there, there was a guy called Ross. I didn't catch your last name, sorry. Who came up to me after round one and said he was a big fan of the show. So appreciate your support, Ross. That was awesome. And for players as well, Alex Barron, who's playing Ninja down there, who's got his rep as the nicest guy in Fab for good reasons. Love you, you're a good dude. And also Jason Thompson on Warrior, who made the top 8 as well, and good all-round guy. So well done. Love you guys. And as far as the organisers go, big shout out to Alan for helping organise the whole thing. It was a well-run event. And also want to give a huge shout out to some of the developers and creators, James White, Chris Gehring, Jason Chung, for sticking around for the after party and just being open to talking with everyone about anything. I thought that was really cool. I was really stoked to have the opportunity to chat to them about that.
Yeah, and to be honest, like that is one of the parts of the Nationals that I really felt that I missed out on because from so many people I've heard great stories about the after party and just, being able to have a friendly conversation with the developers, friendly conversation with James White, and just being able to, really get an insight for the game from the other side, from the development side. And that's why I also wanted to give a massive shout out to Braden Olenson, not only for repping Ranger at the Nationals, one of two people, but also, from what I heard, hosting an amazing after party. And that was actually so many people talked about it. So,
Yeah,
so cheers for that.
And also, sorry, Cal, just to cut in, I've got a few final shout outs and I'll let you go because I have to say, I want to give a huge shout out to my testing partners and my friends who helped me prepare for the tournament. So, Rohan Khanna.
You shouldn't have, Kieran.
Rohan, Tom Penny, Jordan Nelson Funnel. You guys are awesome. And last but not least, as much as I joked about it, thank you, Carol, because without all your hard work sort of actually building that deck, teaching me all the lines, telling me all the sideboard plays, basically like coaching me in a short space of time on how to actually play the deck, there's zero chance I would have done well. So really appreciate that.
You came second in Swiss, that is an amazing result for someone who just picked up the deck the week before.
Yeah,
so
I was channeling your spirit the whole way through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, and talking about, amazing Brute players, I wanted to give a shout out to Liam Spronken, who really blew my mind. Yeah, it's really nice to see up-and-coming players that I haven't heard before and that they've done an amazing job. So shout out to you for making top 8, ripping your boys. And another shout out I want to give is to Nick Holding, who took out the Blitz tournament and earned himself a golden skull cap.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And lastly, but not least, massive shout out to Matt Rogers, who took the whole thing out, undefeated both days. That guy had massive kind of, pressure on his shoulders from winning all these road to nationals, and he did it. And we actually have him on the show today. So, hello, Matt. How you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Awesome.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for being on the show. It's an honor to be able to pick your brain. So fresh after you took out the title of the first national champion for New Zealand. So massive congratulations to you, my man.
yeah, no, mate, I'm absolutely stoked to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. This is an awesome podcast and something that I enjoy listening to as well. So it's really cool to actually be a part of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and like
Yeah.
like like Cal was saying, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us and have a chat with us today. And
yeah, I mean, I had to squeeze you in between the other like 20 people that asked me on their podcast, you know. So
hey, he's good at fab and funny too. Love it. But I just wanted to give a just saying to the audience today. So as far as the questions we're going to go through with Matt today, we're doing more of a general overview because he's doing a sort of upcoming video slash recording with Nick Butcher going into sort of in-depth detail about how they built the deck and the gameplay decisions, all that sort of thing. So I highly recommend you keep an eye out for that. When it
Yeah, and
does,
we'll as soon as it drops, we'll have those links in the description if you're watching YouTube, or we'll just have the links there available.
yeah, for sure. Like for my basketball fans out there, it's kind of like detail with Kobe Bryant. It's you're getting it,
oh
you're,
gosh.
you're getting it straight from the champ's mouth. Matt's a humble guy,
All
so
of
he's
this
hating this.
pressure again, eh? It's no, but I certainly am intending on putting a very, very detailed video. It's not going to be a 5 minute quick clip or anything like that. It's going to be, sort of half an hour. We're going to sit down. We're going to go through the deck. We're going to go through the preparation. We're going to go through pretty much anything that I've learned in this game so far. I'm going to try to put it into this video. So hopefully it helps a few people, and I really hope that it's ends up being some good content.
No, that's awesome, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to be some great content.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll be holding out to listen to it myself. To maybe I feel like I'm going to learn a few things. But anyway, without further ado, I suppose we should get into things. I know you want to start
Yeah,
off
for
with a couple
sure.
of questions, Carol.
yeah, I was just going to say, Matt, do you have any shout outs for anyone before we dive in?
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple. You guys actually gave a couple of my shout outs, so but I mean, I can as well, I guess. Obviously, it goes without saying. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Nick Butcher, and Jacob Pearson, my two testing partners. They know full well that I wouldn't have done this without them. And I can't thank them enough for all the late nights. I'd plan a testing session at sort of 6:30, and then I'd end up working all night and not come home till 9 o'clock, and they're still more than willing to jump on and go until 1 a.m. in the morning with me.
Mm,
It's just absolute selflessness, dedication,
dedication,
especially
eh?
from Nick's side, considering
Mm,
he couldn't even play the event. So I can't thank them enough. Um, and yeah, and I definitely want to give a shout out to Nick Holding as well. So Nick was he was given the title by James White himself as the first Rakai of Ether,
Nice.
and that
oh,
is
wow.
one heck of an achievement. So
Mm-hmm.
winning that event, James came over. He gave him a especially signed card with some with some things to decipher on it as well, a Kano card,
Mm-hmm.
and said I dub you the first Rakai of Ether, and I think
Wow.
it could not have gone to a more fitting person. Nick has been a massive, he has been dedicated to Kano since day one. He played a whole lot of those TTS events with Kano and was the only person that seemed to do well with the deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of people bagged on Kano as a hero, and although people knew it was powerful, nobody was really big brain enough to figure it out. But Nick kept going with it and figured out some incredible lists, and yeah, I'm just so stoked that he got that title.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, and
Nice.
I agree with you. Couldn't have gone to a more deserving person. And also, I hope my testing partners were listening to Matt's shout out there. You guys got to step up your game.
Oh gosh. No, I do also want to give a shout out to Kieran and Carol. You guys produce some incredible content that so many people around the world get to watch and look forward to every week. And the amount of videos, I mean, I struggle to keep up. The amount of videos and podcasts that you put out, the amount of time and effort that you put in to do something that's just completely passion driven and for the community is incredible. So really, thank you
Oh,
so much,
thanks,
and
man.
please keep doing it.
Yeah, cheers, man. Appreciate that. That's awesome. We swear we didn't make him say
That's
that.
real nice. Definitely got some warm
Oh,
fuzzies there, you know.
no, it's honestly so awesome, and yeah, no, I'm honored to be able to come along and to add to this because this is a platform that that you guys have built up that a lot of people watch, so it's cool.
Thanks. It's yeah, I really appreciate that, you know. We try to do our best.
Yeah. All right, Cal, do you want to kick things off with a couple of questions?
Yeah, so I thought I'd, start off with kind of go chronologically through the process of how it all started for you right after Crucible dropped. So, my first question is, when did you decide that Dash is the class you're going to play for Nationals and that you're going to lock into it and test it solely?
Probably about 3 or 4 days before nationals. I think maybe
Oh,
maybe
wow.
Oh,
five. It, wa-
okay.
it was in the final week. So I spent most of my testing time on Warrior. Spent a bit on Wizard at the start, then spent a lot on Warrior, and we were really confident with our Warrior list, but or a few lists, and it changed a lot over the time. Like we went from playing a really big bladed deck to a super clunky deck full of commands and everything to realizing that Scar
Yeah.
was still really good to just kind of every iteration that you can think of, and we went through quite a lot of things, and it kind of wasn't until later on that we sort of started to that we sort of started to get how Plasma Pistol can actually change the control side of the deck, and how High Octane was still just High Octane,
Absolutely.
and yeah, so I think a few days before nationals, or maybe a week before nationals, I was still unhappy with it where our warrior lists were. The list that we had that I felt was the best was really hard to play. Like I felt like I had to make every decision correct to beat
Yeah.
Dash every time and to beat Bravo. Those were the two main things, and yeah, I was sort of winning about 50% of the games, but I felt like their seat was so much easier to play, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that for so many rounds. And it felt like
Yeah.
every time I made such a tiny small bad decision, I lost the game. And yeah, I was sort of like, oh, how can it be this hard? I need to just I really just want to be playing the other side of this where I feel like I only have to make,
Yeah.
sort of 80% of the decisions that I'd have to make on the other side, and I could probably just keep winning the other side, and I started to, and I sort of realized that yeah, I wanted to be honest, I wanted a bit of an easier deck to play, and then
Absolutely. I
we
mean,
started we
it's
started
10
looking.
rounds, right? 10
Yeah,
rounds of
exactly.
Swiss. So I think that's a really valid point. And I think, the results showed that you made the right decision. Um, but yeah, I do feel like, it's important to be able to go into that autopilot mode at times, and yeah, just congrats on taking the win.
Yeah, no, thank
And
you. So,
yeah, so you've committed to Dash quite late, and I wanted to know, going into Rhodes, what was the class or the classes that you were most worried about in terms of the matchup?
so the two things I was most worried about were Ninja and Brute. specifically Ninja, actually, because I thought there was a good chance that Kieran would play it. So I was actually more worried about the players than the classes themselves, to be
Yeah, I
completely
see.
honest. And I was worried about Brute because I felt like there was a good chance that maybe Isaac and Jason would play it. I know that Isaac's always been a big fan of Brute, and yeah, Jason's going to want to smash up some dash decks, and they're testing together, and they're testing with Hayden Dale, who's an incredible mind as well. So I kind of, I kind of figured that these are the players that I have to try to beat, um, and
So I
yeah,
see. Yeah.
so those were the matchups I was finding the hardest, I think, with Dash, just because Brute is so RNG, in that it can just bust out all your chambers, and Ninja's got the same sort of thing that, like, you kind of have to block perfectly against them, and sometimes even when you make, the statistical right play at the time, they just have something that was unlikely, or you guessed their arsenal wrong or something, and yeah, you got really punished if you got their arsenal wrong, and you kind of had to make a lot of decisions on the thing. So I really wanted to try to figure out those matchups, and I desperately didn't want to play Fate Foreseen and Sink Below. I tried for a long time to not play those cards. Um,
Yeah, I
and
saw it in your
ended
list
up
that you
having to
had two
concede to it.
each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a follow-up question on that because you mentioned Jason and Isaac in particular on Brute, and I know they were both playing a version of Claw Brute where they ran the dual claws. Was that something you were expecting, or were you expecting more of the traditional romping club style?
I was aware of it. I didn't think they'd crack it as well as they did. Obviously, with this Art of War build, they managed to go way more big turn on it, so it makes sense. But yeah, I guess it was on my radar, but I wasn't expecting it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, I know what you mean there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, would you say you were actually more worried about the players than the classes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think
And
that
who was the number one? Who was the person that you were like, I just have to beat that person, and that was like your biggest worry.
probably Kieran. Maybe Isaac.
That's
I don't know. I don't
it.
know if there was really one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was just kind of a group of people. There was just a few people, and I was like, look, I need to beat these guys to win this trophy. That's what it takes to get this trophy. And John was absolutely on my radar as well. Like John was grouped in
Yeah.
with those guys as well. So yeah, like I knew John would be on Warrior. I did definitely want to play a deck that didn't have a bad matchup to Warrior.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, because funnily enough, when you mentioned Ninja, I was kind of scrambling to figure out what deck I wanted to play because I'd messed around a bit too much, and I think it was kind of boiling down to either Ninja or Brute for me. And I was thinking about last minute, like, just take up the Kodachis one more time, and for one more ride. But then after seeing Carol do so well on Brute, I kind of looked at the strength of the deck, and thought, I've seen Carol play a lot of it. Maybe I can just pick his brains and try it one more time.
It's
Or
easy,
give it one
right?
go.
You just roll
Just roll
Scabskin.
Scabskin, throw the club all day.
Yeah, and in the last couple of days, I was really worried about Ninja, and Nick just kept telling me over and over, like, stop worrying, like, just get over it,
Yeah.
like, it's gonna be fine. People aren't gonna be on as aggressive builds as what we're testing against and stuff. It's constantly talking me off the ledge, like, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely when you asked the question about like what was the thing that I was kind of worrying about and what was daunting on me and stuff, it was definitely the Ninja matchup.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I see.
Because yeah, I know in some circles in previous seasons it felt tough on Ninja to get past sort of the big turns of dash and some of the defense reactions. But I suppose, like you were saying, like I feel I didn't quite crack the super aggressive build as well. But I can see that being a concern. Just those hyper aggressive Ninja decks where you block wrong once and you're massively behind, and then it just feels like you can
Yeah,
get
or
a
you just,
snowball effect from
or
that.
they just have like a natural combo after natural combo, and you're just like, okay, well, I can't do anything about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, I think what is it, flying kick, like the 7 power one, like massively improved
Oh
the
yeah,
deck.
yeah.
I think that it
Yeah,
got,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, like it just got a lot of extra pieces that kind of made it come together, and it was just so much harder to block. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, I couldn't just like the way I wanted to construct my deck for the mirror is that I wanted so many of these mech cards, and I wanted this yeah, like this plan. And I didn't want a whole lot of defense reactions and stuff. I wanted to sort of have a dash control plan with all 6 chambers to be able to beat
Mm-hmm.
brute, and then the control inside to be able to beat warrior, and then I still wanted all of the high octane kind of craziness to be able to beat the mirror. So that left me in a spot
Mm-hmm.
where I was weak to ninja, and I
Yeah.
was constantly trying to kind of find ways to fix that matchup so that I didn't lose nationals to Kieran. Basically, was kind of my thoughts.
That actually kind of leads me into a question I was keen to ask you in particular about your testing process because to my understanding I feel like you've got one of the best testing processes out there when in the lead up to tournaments and how you go about things. So I was wondering if you could just give us sort of a general overview of how you go about that, like when Crucible dropped, did sort of you, Nick and Jacob all just start throwing together decks you thought were good and play them against each other, or would you play like sort of sets of 5 games each on a particular deck, or basically, yeah, a rough idea of what your process was?
Yeah, so I think our process is firstly to try to make a bunch of decks, but most importantly to try to concentrate on one or two at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So like we all kind of pick decks to concentrate on, and we'd concentrate on just those and try to not yeah, like try to not be testing one thing against 7 different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of testing the 3 or 4 decks that we have that we're concentrating on at the moment against each other, and making sure that each of us are all playing different sides, which is really hard with
Mm-hmm.
Nick because he just hates playing some classes. um,
Yeah.
but obviously Nick brings a lot of positives in other ways. But yeah, but yeah, like basically just making sure that
I
we
can't
swap
imagine
sides a
Nick
lot.
playing Guardian, to be honest.
Oh no, he will never play a game of Guardian. No way. That's why Jacob's such a great asset. Man, Jacob plays that deck phenomenally, like absolutely
Mm.
phenomenally. And I think that's gonna yeah. Before if I say more on that, that'll probably I'm sure you've got a question about that I'll ruin. So um, I guess our process is to just take it step by step. Kind of build about 3 or 4 decks, play them around against each other for a couple of days, make sure we all play both sides so that we understand the matchup playing against and what cards we're thinking about and what cards they're arsenaling,
Mm.
etc., etc. And then put those decks down and pick up a different set of decks and do the same thing, and then come back and then slowly start mixing them in. We try to not
Mm.
go too crazy with changing classes all of the time quickly. We want to just change around a few cards and stick to those classes, even if we're getting frustrated playing them. The getting frustrated playing the certain classes is actually great because it fuels us to keep changing bits in the decks to get the matchups to where sort of where we want them, rather than taking the
Mm.
easy road of stuff at Wizard. I'm never going to figure out Wizard. I'll just put it down. We
Mm-hmm.
stick to testing that deck that we're on for those few days, and kind of keep trying to tinker and figure it out.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got
Mm.
sort of a pretty
Nice.
rigorous process there. And I suppose one other question I had is when you're playing games like, say, for example, you're playing Nick or you're playing Jacob or Nick's playing Jacob, is the third person there usually observing the games and can see all the cards to give some notes, or is it usually just sort of a one-on-one endeavour?
It was certainly the plan to do that a lot more. It didn't happen as much, mainly because in the few weeks leading up to Nats, I got really busy with a new store fit out and a whole lot of craziness that was going on at work and stuff. And Jacob, goes to work at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, so he usually has to sleep a bit before I do. So a lot of the
Mm.
time, it actually did just end up me and Nick and Jacob and Nick. and then the odd the odd nights here and there of me and Jacob if Nick was busy. So yeah, we certainly planned to do more of three and one person taking notes and making suggestions and seeing both the hands and stuff. That's how we would have liked to have tested it, but we didn't get to do that very often.
Fair enough. And speaking of Jacob, you were nice enough to leave me the question to ask you, but I noticed that at Nationals, you guys were kind of playing two decks almost on the opposite sides of the meta in a way. So you were on the pistol dash, and he was on Guardian, which can be a bit of a rough matchup for Guardian sometimes. And it's sort of something I've seen different teams or testing groups approach a bit differently, because for example, Jason and Isaac were both on the exact same like 80 card brute list, and I know John, Jason Thompson, and Ramel, I believe, not on the same list, but they were all on Warrior. So it seems like they've sort of settled on a class and decided we'll work together and find out the best version of this list. I know amongst my group, we often play sort of 4 different decks. Like down at Nationals, Tom was on Warrior, I was on Brute, Carol was on, Rohan was on Dash. So what sort of led to you guys deciding we're going to play, we've tested together, we've found out what's pretty good, but we're going to play these 2 totally different decks?
Yeah, I mean, I think right from the start we intended that we would try to figure out what the best deck for the tournament is, and we'd both play that. Yeah, I think we got nearer to the end, I switched from Warrior to Dash, and then Jacob was going to play Dash as well, but in testing he just wasn't doing very well with it. I mean, it was, it's a little bit thing to say or whatever, but it was a little bit demoralizing for him. We'd sort of sit down for a testing session, and I'd beat him 3-0 on one side, and we'd swap sides, and the same thing would happen, and he just really wasn't feeling comfortable with anything but Bravo. Yeah, and then I'd test some matchups with Bravo, and he'd just start beating me. So yeah, with the Dash matchup, he wasn't beating. He wasn't beating me on Dash, but on a lot of other decks he was. So it was kind of, and it was the same for Nick as well. When he was playing Dash and Warrior and such, Nick was whipping him over and over. And when he was playing Bravo, he was winning games. He just has a way of playing that deck that is completely a level above where he's at without it. And I think he identified that as, look, playing this might make it a lot harder for me to win the tournament because I'm probably unlikely to beat Matt on Dash. But yeah, I think top 8 was Jacob's main goal. He sort of identified that, look, I want to win one of these gold foils. I want to win some money, and the difference between first and 8th, considering what these gold foils are selling for, isn't massive. And there was always the danger with Brute and Ninja and such. And Jacob's testing versus both Brute and Ninja, he was absolutely smashing them. So there was kind of the second thing of we want, if you don't win Nats, Matt, I really want to, and if you don't win Nats, it's probably because some Brute or Ninja binned you off with like a bunch of things. So then I'm gonna smash them with my Bravo deck, sort of thing. So I guess there was a bit of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense as well, because if you're really, really good on one particular deck, I mean, I think we've said before, you don't want to get hung up on one person, because, I mean, obviously he respects your game and so do we, and we fully expected you to be in the top 8 and quite likely make the final, but like you mentioned, there's always a chance that, something goes wrong against like a Brute or a Ninja, they get triple plunder unnatural combos, or the Brute rolls 6 on Scab Skin and Smash over and over again, and you just can't do that. And we saw Jacob play that deck to incredible success. I believe he went 8-2 with his only losses being to you and Rohan on Dash, and the game against Rohan was very close from what I heard. And it was just a bit unfortunate, I suppose, the way the brackets worked out, that he had to play you in the semi-final. But, I mean, I think that validated his choice.
It was actually one of the closest matches of the weekend as well. That semi-finals was incredible. He was, Jason Chung was sitting there watching it, and he said, anything whatsoever, if anything hadn't have gone like exactly my way at the end there, like I would have lost. Like it was, yeah, it was a very close match. He almost managed to take down the boogeyman, and I mean, I did think he had a decent chance of it. The way he plays Bravo, he had a decent chance of taking me down, even though I'm his worst matchup.
Yeah, and when you mentioned that he is smashing Brute and Ninja, that's one thing that we, and by we I mean Carol again, identified as that Guardian was like an incredibly tough matchup for Brute. So I was really hoping that, like, I basically didn't want to play Jacob and Kale if I could avoid doing so, because in an already very difficult matchup on a deck that I'm not sort of hyper experienced with, I just knew that if I sat down against from Jacob, he would know exactly the lines of play, and I'd just kind of be fumbling my way through it. I mean, if I played him, my plan was just to roll Scabskin a bunch of times, hope to get lucky.
Yeah, I mean, from our testing, Bravo might have been the best deck. Like, you know, in our testing, Bravo was absolutely dominating Warrior. It was dominating Brute, and it was dominating Ninja. Like, I mean, from the Warrior side, I consider myself quite a good Warrior player. I couldn't beat Jacob. I couldn't beat him on Bravo. And the funniest thing is when I played Bravo, I couldn't win either. So but that was the one match. Like I couldn't beat Nick on Warrior playing Bravo. But you know there was a possibility that the Warrior matchup wasn't as incredible. But anybody else playing Warrior was smashing them. So. Like if the
Yeah.
Bravo side is played correctly, which I wasn't able to do in testing, but Jacob certainly was. If the Bravo side played correctly, those three matchups seem to just be very easy wins.
Yeah,
And
well,
it's
And I'm
only
glad
really
that Jacob
Dash that's the
committed.
struggle.
Yeah, I'm glad he committed to, the deck that he's passionate about and that he loves from the get-go. So it's really good to see that. Yeah, I thought that Guardian might be actually insanely good for the tournament. Um, but yeah, so would you say like overall, you played 10 games of Swiss and then you played the 3 games of the top 8. Would you say that the game versus Jacob was the closest? Was that the time that you felt like, you had to play your best?
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was the time when I felt like I might be about to lose. Yeah.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I didn't really feel like. I mean, it's a little bit cocky to say, but I didn't really feel like that way at many other points in the weekend. I
Mm-hmm.
felt in control of the game. You know, I was mostly playing a control deck, and I did
Yeah.
always feel very in control. That game against Jacob at the end there, I did not feel in control, and I felt like things might be about to slip away from me.
yeah, and I think it's
Mm.
it's fair to say that you were confident when you were playing your matchups throughout the tournament. I don't think people are going to hold that against you. Because I know I went in with a very specific game plan against you in our round, and I proceeded to get stomped pretty badly towards the end. So
I mean, you got unlucky as well, but yeah, it was yeah. I think I had a very good plan for you on the on the other side as well. So
yeah,
it was always going to be yeah, going to
abs-
go one way or the other.
absolutely, because I think that's the thing with Dash versus Brute. Like there were definitely two sides. People saying it's almost a free win for Brute because you smash all their chambers and you survive and you get there. But I mean, I felt I was pretty consistent in saying that if you play against a Dash player who knows the lines of play, knows what Brute's trying to do, it is a very, very, very close matchup. I
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah,
my
I agree.
Absolutely.
yeah. So, but yeah, that's yeah, definitely big shout out to Jacob. Incredible performance across the weekend, and like we said, validated his choice to play Guardian. So that's super cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so my last question for you, Matt, was, it was a very strenuous weekend. You played an amazing round of Fab for the weekend. But what was like in game, what was the most satisfying moment for you out of those 2 days? Did you have
I
like a
mean,
moment, within in game where you thought like, yes.
I think the turn that I took 17 damage from John, the turn that I took
Yeah.
17 damage and decided, all right, this is where I sat there with 3 blues and a red unmovable in hand. I didn't have an arsenal, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
look, this is really the turn that I have to pivot, because otherwise he's going to start eking me away from here. And yeah, I sort of he was playing with a 5 card hand. I was yeah, I was reasonably confident of Razor Reflexes in his arsenal. He started by pitching a blue and playing a Supremacy. It was going to be really, really hard for me to block this turn, and I think I'm most likely, even with the red unmovable, there was a good chance that I block up, then he swings in with an enlightened strike or whatever. I end up taking a ton of damage and losing most of my hand, and I can't progress my game plan anymore. I can't turn the tide. Yeah, it was. He attacked him with a Supremacy. He had to crack his boots. He came in with a Supremacy again. He glinted it. I still didn't unmovable, and then he smacked me with a Command and Conquer. And then
Whoa.
yeah, I took
What a turn.
17. And then I pitched. I managed to shoot him a bunch and charge everything up. I've got counters on everything. I've got an unmovable in my arsenal. I now finally feel safe. He has a counter on his
Nice.
Dawnblade. Doesn't matter. I actually finally feel safe. Whereas the rest of that game, I'm sort of having to use everything to stop him and trying to hope he has at least somewhat of an off turn so that I can kind of get back up there. But yeah, at that point, once I have everything charged up and I have the unmovable in arsenal, I can spend 3 cards and still shoot him for 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I had a Teklo core in play, and yeah, I just needed to be in a spot where nothing scared me anymore, and it was a good feeling to get into that spot and know that I'm starting to machine gun him down now.
Yeah, because I remember
Nice.
I remember watching that play as well, and I saw you didn't block the first Supremacy, didn't block the second, and I vividly remember when he threw down that Command and Conquer and you took that as well, and I think you dropped to about 6 or 8 life, and there was a bit of a sort of ooh from the crowd, and I was thinking, I'm like, Matt's not taking 17 without a game plan. Like he's got
That's
something.
how you win this game. Just take 17 to the face,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just start doing your own thing.
Yeah, I was like, Matt's got something cooking up here, and because it looked like a big life lead, but when you sort of think that, you hit him back with, you engaged the Purifiers, hit him back a bunch of times, loaded everything, arsenal a card, and then like you say, you were just thinking, count on Dawnblade, that's gone next turn, and then I'm in control, and it was, I think there's not a lot of players who'd be able to make that decision. I think there's a lot of people who might take the first Supremacy hit but not the second one, or might sort of sketch out and block the command. And I thought that was a really good example of like discipline play, knowing your deck, knowing how much damage they're going to do, knowing what you can do. So that was awesome to watch. And when I saw you come back from there, I think from then on, it never really looked like you were losing. Obviously, you had to play really well to finish it off, but yeah, when you drop the unmovable on the next turn, I was like, yeah, Matt knows what he's doing here. So that was really cool to watch from an observer.
No, that the unmovable is definitely the way to sort of stop, kind of stop them in their tracks there and regain momentum. So yeah, I dropped down to 12 on that turn, and he was on 26, and that's when I knew that I would be able to shoot him for 12. And he'd have to take most of it to be able to keep the momentum. If he didn't, I was probably pretty good anyway. And if he did, I had the unmovable to stop him. And then, the plan is to make sure I have enough counters on all of my items at the end of that attack that I can do 12 again the next turn and not have to, at that time he really has to start blocking because that's 24 damage, which will probably allow me to take, nuggets of damage, use my 2 equipment and do 12 again the next turn. So that's kind of where I made the decision. I need to output 36 damage here. I'm prepared to take 17 to make that happen.
Yeah, that was
Nice.
awesome. And obviously, a big shout out to John as well, because I suppose you had your game plan, but he probably also knew that, like, eventually if I don't go for it, Dash is going to turn the corner on me. So he did everything he could, but sometimes it's maybe just a bit of a difficult matchup that you have to take a risk, and if it doesn't pay off, then you live with it.
Mm.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Dash, the control builds like mine are really, really hard matchup for Warrior, and that's the main reason that I didn't play Warrior. So yeah, John's a phenomenal Warrior player. He knows his deck inside and out. But
Hmm.
yeah, defeating this monster is a hard feat.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our questions, unless you've got anything else, Carol. But
No, I think that was really great to just get some insight, even the play-by-plays for, someone who couldn't be there. That was really, really awesome of you to share these moments with us, Matt.
it's great going into this. We said we'll probably take up about 15 minutes, Matt, and 40 minutes in, he's still going strong. So, um, but yeah, did you have any final words you wanted to drop to the audience before you shoot off?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely just want to plug my upcoming video.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really, really, really wanting everybody to kind of check that out. I think I've got a lot of things to throw off my chest. There's a lot of things that Nick and I and Jacob have figured out in this game, that I think, yeah, are kind of the reasons for the results, and I'd really like to share that stuff, and the deck, and most importantly, how to beat the deck as well. I think that,
Mm.
Dash is a bit of a boogeyman. It is a bit of a monster, as I was saying, but it's absolutely beatable as well. And I spent the few days before Nationals stressing out about how beatable my deck was, and had to be
Yeah.
constantly talked off a ledge. So, but yeah, I think there's going to be some cool things worth listening to. So please do check it out. We're going to try to get it up by the end of the week.
Awesome, and yeah, and just
Yeah.
to reiterate again for our listeners, we might not have the link up originally when we upload this, if the video is dropping a bit later, but it will be linked on the YouTube description and on our Spotify. So if you don't see it immediately, just be sure to check back towards the end of the week if you don't see it elsewhere, because we could not highly recommend that more. Like that, this is like, if you're wanting to improve your game and listen to some of the top minds in the business, this is the video that Matt and Jacob, or the recording they're doing, that's the one you want to listen to. So be sure to check it out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think Jacob's actually going to do a similar Bravo video with I think with Nick as well. So there
Oh,
might
awesome.
be two videos back to back weeks or something. So yeah, we'll try to not steal your kind of content space too much, but yeah, we'll check out a couple of things, and I think it'll be cool.
Now, the more the merrier, I
Absolutely.
think.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, that'd be awesome. So yeah, definitely recommend to everyone to keep an eye on the space, because yeah, like we were saying, if you want to improve your game, listening to some of the best players is the way to do it. So
Mm.
that's awesome, and thank you so much for giving us your time today, Matt. And once again, congratulations on an epic 13-0 run over Flesh and Blood Nationals, and yeah, the first New Zealand national champion, everyone, Matt Rogers. So, little round of applause.
Round of applause.
Thanks again, guys. Cheers. Thank you.
No worries, man. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks everybody for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.
See ya.
All right, and once again, a big shout out to Matt Rogers. Thank you so much for all that information. Super detailed, so that was really cool to hear. And we thought
Absolutely.
we'd just round out today's episode with a bit more talk about nationals in general, I guess. Do you have a couple of questions you wanted to go through there, Carol?
Yeah, so I mean, how was it just picking up a deck a week before like a major tournament like the Nationals? I mean, obviously you wanted to do real well, but how did you find that process?
Yeah, well, like I was saying to a few people at the event, I spent a bit too long trying to figure out other decks, like Wizard, for example, and Runeblade, and I just couldn't quite get there. Like I figured out that I wasn't going to be able to play Wizards well over 7 to 10 rounds, and Runeblade, I felt the list was pretty good, but it wasn't quite there. It always just felt it was 1 or 2 steps away. So my choices boiled down to Ninja and Brute, effectively. And Ninja I've played a lot in the past, but I just didn't think the list I had, or the class in general, was enough to get across the line. So
Mm-hmm.
at that point, after you'd done so well on brutes, I was just thinking, what's my best chance to do well at nationals? And despite the fact that I hadn't played it a whole lot, I've played, so many games against you on with you playing brute, and I've seen you play brute so many
Mm-hmm.
times. I just thought, if this is a deck that I can maybe come up with a strategy to beat Dash, I feel I know how to play against Ninja, and I feel against like the very top warriors, I might have a bit of a problem with, but I feel that's still a
Mm-hmm.
winnable matchup, and I feel like I can beat a lot of warrior players. So effectively, I just thought, I think it was on the Tuesday of the Nationals week, I'm locking in brute. I'm locking in brute, and I'm just gonna pick your brain and ask you for like absolutely everything you can tell me about it in advance. So
Yeah, I
that was,
love it how you did it right after saying, on the previous podcast, being like, make sure you really know the class you're playing with.
yeah, but I
No,
was,
but that was an amazing performance, to be honest, like as I said before, second in Swiss, that's amazing.
yeah, it's pretty cool because a lot of good players at nationals. Of course, you have sort of the cream of the crop there. So pretty much, every matchup across the course of the tournament was pretty difficult. Even
Mm-hmm.
ones that I thought would be quite easy. So I thought dash control, like not so much match version, but like a pure dash control. I figured that was going to be my, the easiest matchup of the tournament.
Oh, yeah, no, it's really not.
Yeah, then I ended up playing Kiki. So shout out to Kiki in round 9, I believe, and I smashed their chamber on turn 1, and then I was thinking easy breezy, let's go. And then it turned out the game just started slipping away with dropping a lot of stuff like Enlightened Strikes, Command of Conquers. They just made it sort of
Mm.
very difficult for me to maintain that lead, and it ended up going right down to the wire. I had to sort of punt a little bit and try and get through for the win with I went for a barraging beatdown play to strip one card out of their hands and then
Mm-hmm.
just go Command and Conquer Pummel. So I was really hoping that they, out of their 3 cards, they'd have one defense reaction, so I'd guaranteed get through for lethal. Um,
Yeah.
so they ended up double blocking, and I got the Pummel for the win. Turns out they actually had 3 cards that could have blocked, but they were assessing the game state and figured it it just wasn't going to be enough to get there if you triple
Yeah.
block in that spot, which I understand. So I felt like I was pretty fortunate to get out alive on that one.
Nice. That's awesome. And, you kind of had to really quickly put the list together. Was there anything that you would change in your list or the class that you played, that you think that you look back and being like, I could have changed that.
Well, yeah, so in putting the list together, I mean, luckily you did kind of 95% of the work for me, I
Yeah.
basically, I think we talked about it before the tournament. There are a few cards like the Red Barrage and Bighorn that, in sort of like a couple of games in testing, just didn't seem to be very good.
Yeah.
So we took those out, and I think I left pretty much all the blues the same. It was just a few cards here and there that, for my playstyle, I thought I'd like to have. I think the Predatory Assault, you mentioned that one to me. I
Mm-hmm.
started off with 3, but then cut it down to 1 because I felt it was good just as a one of. And
Yep.
Pummel, I started off with 2 Pummels. But again, I know you kind of are not a fan of that card in Brute, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of figured out, yeah, the red Pummel, having 2 was a bit clunky, but having the 1 of yellow Pummel, it's in that sweet spot where you can pitch it to weapon to attack. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I like the idea of having 1 Pummel because if I pitch it at some point in the game, or even if I have to play it early, it kind of puts the fear of Pummel into the opponent's mind for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you can actually make those bluff plays, leaving resource up. I actually like doing that when I have Tunic up, attack with a pack hunt or something, make sure my opponent knows I have one resource up just to, potentially force like a 3, 4 card block.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the classic one of pitching a blue, playing Command and Conquer. So you have the
Mm-hmm.
1 resource up, you have 3 counters on your tunic, and it's really representing a pummel. And it's that play didn't come up too much across the course of the weekend, but I played 1 game against Jared, and who was playing really well on Ninja. So big shout
Mm-hmm.
out to you, Jared. Definitely playing a better list than I would have played with flying kicks and things like that. But I think there was one situation, a very close game, where I pitched the blue, played the Command and Conquer, and I know from being in that position on Ninja, particularly in a close game, you really don't want to double block and get blown out. Because if you double block in that
Mm-hmm.
position and they pummel, you take 3 damage, you lose your arsenal card, you lose a card in hand, and then your turn is literally just sort of either arsenal or Karachi, and that is just absolutely backbreaking. So he made the decision to sort of take the 6 damage, kind of saying like, "Oh, I just don't want to get pummeled anyway." And fortunately for me, because I didn't have the pummel at that point, but fortunately it allowed me to get rid of the plunder and arsenal, which I think would have been pretty devastating in a future turn. So, that's not to suggest he misplayed it or anything, because, when I've played you playing Ninja, I blocked your CNCs when you didn't have pummel with 4 cards like multiple times.
Absolutely, and it's yeah, you kind of have to sometimes.
Yeah, so I guess the other cards, I put 1 red drone in because I felt playing sort of a fatigue game plan against some decks that I might need that drone, particularly against.
Absolutely, and I think it really paid off for you.
Yeah, because I think against decks like Warrior as well, where if you're playing a grind out strat or even playing against Dash, you might run Remembrance. Just being able to have that drone as like a discard for some of your cards like Blood Rush Bellow, for example, or Breakneck Battery. Or just being able to simply play the drone a couple of times during the game and just have it recycle to the bottom of your deck over and over again. I thought 1 drone would pay off, and I felt it did help quite a lot. I think the big one that I put in for equipment was Iron Rock Gauntlet. So
Yeah.
Iron Rock Gauntlet, it's a card that I feel if you're a good or experienced enough brute player, you don't actually need it. I know you're not a big fan of the Iron Rock Gauntlet, you just prefer the Gamblers in pretty much every matchup. But I felt because I didn't have enough time to get like a sort of 100% really, really good handle on a deck, I felt that I was going to have to lean on that Iron Rock Gauntlet.
Yeah, I feel like it really improves your blocks versus Ninja and Warrior, especially. Also Bravo, I feel like having that extra block is actually massive. Sometimes it can save you from a crippling or save you from an Iron Song Determination turn, so I feel like it can make the matchups easier.
Yeah, so, and I ended up playing 3 aggro ninjas across the course of the tournament, and one of them I managed to sort of pull away from a little bit early, so I was a bit more comfortable in that game. But I know against Jared's and Mark Tung, I believe it was, those were like very, very, very close games, and I think the Iron Rock Gauntlet really came through for me on those. So I think I managed to get the win against both of them with the Reckless Swing, which is super annoying.
Nice.
But yeah, the Iron Rock Gauntlet, it came through big time. As far as changing cards would go, I probably would have removed the 2 potions.
Yeah.
So I know when we talked about it, the game plan was for some of the more control-y decks where you might need to set up on them. Having the Energy Potion and the Time Snap Potion allows you to set up sort of massive, massive turns that they just simply can't deal with. So it did help me out a bit in a Ninja Control game, which is just a super grindy matchup. I mean, eventually that one went to time, and Alex Barron was nice enough to concede. So big thanks to you, Alex, for that one. But I think ultimately having 2 unmovables in those spots would have helped me more. The reason for that is the 2 potions are slided out in every single matchup apart from sort of the pure control decks. And
Yeah.
I think the sort of Warrior decks were a bit scarier for me than those control decks ultimately. And being able to side out the 2 unmovables against everything except Warrior and Bravo, it still allows you to maintain your same your core amount of blues without sort of, you're not being like, I've got to cut 2 unmovables and go down to 14 blues, which just doesn't really work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think in hindsight, yeah, I would have put in probably the 2 blue unmovables for those 2 potions, but aside from that, credit to you that the deck was extremely well built, so I just had to play it.
Hey, I'm glad someone got a use of it, and you played it really well. And talking about, some of the highlights for your weekend, what would you say was your kind of favorite moment of the weekend, or of day 1 or day 2?
I think day 1 was probably sort of the feeling of relief, I suppose, because I lost round 3, so I was 2-1, and you had to go 5-2 to qualify. So I think it was probably in round 6 when I managed to win that game and lock in my spot for day 2. So obviously I still really
That
want...
magical 5-1.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously I still wanted to... so I believe that game was against Isaac Olsen on the Claws Brute, who we actually had a very close game. I managed to get some damage in going first with a really good hand, which I think really helped me out there. Because I think that is a difficult match to play in the mirror, playing Romping Club versus Claw Brute. They're just able to go... they can go wider and have bigger turns than you. So for that one, again, I wasn't really sure of my sideboarding strategy, so I actually spoke to you before, and you told me, just side out all your defense reactions and just go toe for toe and try to stay ahead. So that's what I did, and it worked out. I mean, pretty luckily for me, it came down to a turn where I believe Isaac had gone down to about 3, and I had an Alpha Rampage in Arsenal, and I was looking at my hand thinking I've got lethal next turn, and he went for an Art of War Blood Rush Bellow turn, and it looked like it was going to be really, really close. I'm not sure exactly what he had in his hand, but I believe it was at the point where if he rolls a 4 or better on Scabskins, he pretty much wins, or gets very close to winning. So he rolled a 3, cracked the gloves, and unfortunately rolled a 1, which is just brute life sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah, so
That's rough.
rolling the 1, that was pretty much, I think we both knew it. As soon as he rolled the 1, that was game over. So I just dropped sort of the Barraging Beatdown and Alpha Rampage, and that was enough to get there. So that was probably the big moment of relief on day 1, being 5-1 and knowing I was going to make day 2. As far as day 2 went, it's a close one in the top 8 because I had 2 really, really cool games in the top 8. I know my semi-final against John went right down to the wire. It was funny, I actually eventually killed myself with a Reckless Swing, discarding a Beast Within, which banished the final 2 cards of my deck and lost me the 2 life. And found out afterwards because I blocked with the Beast Within and got routed, and I, instead of responding with Reckless Swing then, I kind of just blanked and let it come back to my hand. I think I was locked into the mindset of thinking, well, it's a 1 and 4, I should be all good. And then he just rolled for which card to discard, and it was the Beast Within, and I lost. And I think in saying that, I feel like I was probably going to lose that game anyway, because he showed me a Command and Conquer in Arsenal, and I think if he drew the Glint next turn, which I believe he was going to, then I have no way to get through it. But that game would have gone right down to the wire, so that was really fun. But I have to say, my favourite game, probably the whole weekend, was playing against one of our best mates, Rohan Kana on Dash. So that was the quarterfinal game, and I think...
I heard so many people talk about that game.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a funny one. So for our listeners, Rohan's version of Dash was similar in a way to Matt's, but he didn't have the full 3 purifiers. So there were sort of actually distinct differences between the decks. But my gameplay against Dash was pretty similar for all the ones with high octane. It was run sort of 69, 70 cards, smash out their 3 chambers, survive the 3 high octanes, and win on fatigue. But obviously I tested against Rohan as my Dash testing partner, so he knew exactly what I was doing. And we both knew that 1 Remembrance in that matchup for Dash totally changes the game plan, because once I get through his 3 chambers, he's able to Remembrance either 3 back or 2 chambers in a high octane. So basically that led to a huge grind out. It was a bit funny because everyone else had finished, and I believe one of the semi-finals had finished, and we were still going. So we had James White, the creator of the game, sort of standing there going like, "Oh, you guys need to hurry up a bit."
Hurry up.
It's probably my fault, I feel, because it was an untimed round. I was playing a bit slow, so that's something I need to work on for sure. Yeah, and so the funny part of that game was, so I kind of got through the high octanes, and I'd killed all 3 of his chambers, and I see Remembrance in my hand. I'm like, okay, well, I've got to save this for Arc Smash. Then Rohan plays Remembrance, gets back 3 chambers, and I effectively, on my turn, just do the same and bring back 3 Arc Smashes. And then it's the spot, it was this funny spot where, I'm thinking, okay, I feel, because I got some very good draws in that game, I was pretty lucky to get through, a big tome turn. I think I got through, 16 damage on 1 turn with Barraging Beatdown, Blood Rush Bellow. So I was in a really good position to win, I felt. But Rohan played that matchup absolutely perfectly. And then I was thinking, okay, I've got this in the bag. I'll just wait till I draw the smashes, and there we go. And then Rohan drops a chamber, then drops a second chamber, I believe. And he starts having this going with Purifier. And meanwhile, I'm going through my hands being like, where are the smashes? Where are the smashes? So, I'm getting more and more stressed out about this, and it's like forcing me to, because we're basically both fatiguing out, so it really put the pressure on me to block correctly, which I don't think I did ultimately. I think I let through a bit too much damage. And it's just one of those games where you see it slipping out of your grasp. You know, I'm having these visions of winning this game and trying to win the semi-final, going on to the finals, and then it's just chipping away 3 damage at a time. But eventually I was lucky enough I got the smash, managed to kill the rest of his items, and then eventually win it with a drone pummel at the very, very end. But yeah, it was, I mean, it's good and bad playing your mate sometimes. Like, obviously you prefer not to knock one of your friends out of the tournaments, but at the same time you're thinking one of us is guaranteed top 4 and this is a really good game.
Yeah, that's the silver lining.
Yeah, so I'd say that was my highlight of the tournament. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't for everyone else who had to wait around for us. Sorry, guys. Actually, James sort of, after the game, sort of gave me a bit of a hurry up and say, yo, you better hurry up next round. So, which I believe.
You better roll that Scapskin, boy.
And then proceeds to play probably like an hour plus thriller against John as well.
Don't worry, James. They're going to play Fatigue again.
Don't worry, James. I've got you. I'm playing 68 card Fatigue against Warrior.
Good stuff.
But yeah, those honestly, all in all, it's just an awesome weekend, and yeah, I've got to thank you one more time for giving me and teaching me the deck, because there's no way I would have done that well without it. So.
No worries.
But yeah, I guess that pretty much brings us to the end of the episode. Slightly longer one than usual today, but again, we're super appreciative of Matt for coming on, and one more final reminder to check out those videos that he's going to put up. And yeah, I think that's about it from us, and congratulations on your daughter Anashe. Can't wait to meet her.
Thank you.
I guess that's it from us going forward, but keep an eye on everyone, because I've heard that Legend Story Studios, they've got a lot more tournaments in the pipeline coming along. So
Yeah, we've heard about some potential announcements coming October, so definitely stay tuned.
yeah, I can't wait. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening, and we look forward for you joining us again next week.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.